Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone at home or on the road. Some of you outside your home for a temporary period. We hope you'll get home soon. Last night, I returned from 2 weeks in Israel, Palestine. I like to call it that, Israel, Palestine, not to create national designation or designations, but to honor the two most popular names the 15 or so million residents of the land used to describe it. First, I want to state the obvious. I really missed being here with all of you, and it's great to be back. Also, I'm really happy that I went. Ever since I lived in Jerusalem in the middle of rabbinical school 25 years ago, I've been going back, rarely less than once a year, ideally more often than that. I planned the trip to have some time away after 6 months at CBST and quickly came to realize that while you might be able to take the Rabbi out of CBST, 6,000 miles is no short distance, taking CBST out of the Rabbi is impossible. So just in the way that you have given me so much grace, created a spirit of so much welcome beyond my wildest dreams as I stepped into this role 6 months ago, I appreciated how our partners in Israel were so receptive to my visit. It was so clear that the presence of our community, our unique, one might say, queer form of Judaism that centers joy and justice not only makes a difference right here in this room and in this city, but it continues to inspire LGBTQ people around the world. I expect there will be many opportunities to share details of my trip, but this Shabbat is about blessings, even in the face of displacement, even in the face of death. In Parshat Vayechi, the children of Israel have come down to ancient Egypt. We've been displaced from our homes because of the famine. And Yaakov, Jacob, our patriarch, knowing he is approaching his own death, gives blessings to his children and to 2 of his grandchildren. There's some complications about these blessings. Menashe, Ephraim, older, younger, older, which hand goes where? Joseph and his father have a little tiff about this. The blessings are not without their complications, but they are still blessings. For me, one of the greatest blessings of this trip was to spend an hour with Rabbi Gilad Kariv. Rabbi Kariv has been a member of the Knesset for the past 3 years. Eran Globus, CBST's own friend of David Rich and more people, I think Eran is a friend of many, took a picture of us together on Tuesday afternoon. Jason, would you mind showing the picture that I shared with you? And maybe we can use this as a prompting. So, Jewish pilgrims to Jerusalem often focus on the Kotel, the western wall of the base of the Second Temple, the closest spot to the Holy of Holies without actually ascending the Temple Mount. What a wall. But in Rabbi Kariv's office, I was treated to a really beautiful collage on his wall, the wall behind us in this picture, which I thought might be a nice prompt to share with you a few blessings about my journey. Top of the picture. Racism is not Judaism. Racism is not my Judaism, it says in red. It was an incredible honor to sit in the office of someone who just gave such a thoughtful, Torah-filled, powerful speech at the rostrum of the Knesset on the second night of Hanukkah, imploring his fellow lawmakers not to corrupt the tales of the Maccabees, not to turn the best intentions of this Jewish story into messianic aspirations that have become an utter embarrassment for all that Israel has tried to stand for. Rabbi Kariv was clear in his office with me that he does not think that when people talk about there being existential threats to Israel, they are doing so blithely. But this still does not excuse Israel's leadership from attempting anti-democratic measures, such as suppressing the right to demonstrate against the government. If there were a Pictionary card for you can love your people and your land and also manifest that love by criticizing it, I think that Rabbi Kariv's likeness would appear over and over and over again. In yellow, there is no greater mitzvah than redeeming captives. Rambam, Maimonides, taught this in the Mishnah Torah some 800 years ago, supported by a variety of mitzvot from the Torah. There are variations on this teaching plastered all over the country, perhaps only dwarfed by bumper stickers with names, photos, verses referring to dead relatives. There are mothers stationed at the entrance to the Knesset compound pointing out the seven, the Shiva, the Shiva, in October 7th. There have been offers by other parties to join Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition to help maintain his political power if only he would sign a deal to release the hostages. From many sources on my trip, leaders in the education world, political world, I heard Netanyahu called a political genius. And yet, compared to the United States, even the United States on the brink of a Trump administration, people talked about how Israel's structure of government can make democracy quite fragile because there just aren't the same kinds of checks and balances that we have here. I am definitely not a political genius, but this type of political genius continues to scare me. Behind my left shoulder, a poster of Rosa Parks. The choices you make in life ultimately determine your destiny. Shortly after I arrived in Hebron in the West Bank, a friend shared that most Palestinian people he knew were angry at Hamas, and there had recently been a large peaceful demonstration in the center of Hebron opposing violent resistance to the occupation. This made me particularly happy about my choice of a gift for another friend's preteen sister, a Rosa Parks Barbie doll, and some texts about Rosa Parks to practice her English reading. I was happy to hear that she already knew something about Rosa Parks. At the same sitting, I gave her even younger sister some Barbie dolls. Now, true confessions, my sister and I had a little, shall we say, deep dive. That's a nicer way than, I don't know. Well, let's say deep dive into the world of Barbie on Black Friday this year. And this was the result of some confusion because I asked a friend what his sister would like from the States, and he said, well, she likes Barbie stuff. And I thought, oh, well, there's Barbie Uno, I see, and there's Barbie puzzles, and there's Barbie coloring books. And then it suddenly occurred to me, maybe he means actual dolls, which he did. And I'm glad I discovered that. And part of what I learned, maybe from the movie, but maybe from the rabbit hole, was that I really could get a variety of color, of body types, of clothing style, and my choices of about a dozen Barbies even included 2 Ken dolls. I explained to their mom over the vegetarian lunch she had prepared for me that I was aware of the power of representation. One of the Ken dolls had a prosthetic leg, an increasing common sight for this generation of children to see among people hurt by the IDF in Gaza. Between the two of us, there's a little rainbow peeking out. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow human being as yourself. I met with leaders of various LGBTQ organizations, including Choshen, Chavruta, Bat Kol, the Agudah, the Jerusalem Open House, I can decipher some of this for you over the oneg, but this includes two big community organizations, two organizations serving largely people who would describe themselves as religious, and an organization that focuses on education and change. I got a sense from all of them that they've appreciated so much the ongoing conversation that they've had with CBST, and that our ties will only deepen. Some of them already have plans to travel here this year, and I hope we'll get to hear from them right here directly. Nearly everyone I spoke with in the LGBT leadership world reported a calendar year in which there's been an uptick in homophobic rhetoric coming from lawmakers and other government officials. For instance, pushback around educators visiting secular frameworks to tell their stories and share about their identity around gender and sexual orientation, their full truths. For instance, also, while there may be official condemnation of so-called reparative therapy among the professional associations in medicine and psychology, a lot of it still seeps through in the form of religious counsel. And some of this quackery has enjoyed a rebirth since most of the states in the United States with large Jewish populations have banned the practice for minors. And one more detail, something else these organizations are struggling with is the banning of so-called kosher phones from making outgoing calls to LGBTQ helplines. And we know these helplines are meeting hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands, and they're really lifelines. How this all relates to the Don't Say Gay frameworks and anti-trans legislation in the United States is worth learning about more. But so far, when I asked people if they had a sense that there was a bit of collusion among Christian nationalists across the sea and the ocean, no one seemed to think that this idea was so far-fetched. Some of the work that is taking place is familiar to us, knowing the work that happened during the first Trump administration, and familiar to what we might expect moving forward. Some of the great successes in Israel, and perhaps we will continue to learn from this, is the relationships that have been built when the federal government level has failed through the lenses of other governments. In Israel, this generally means municipal governments. So I sat with people who really one by one built relationships with over 100 mayors of cities, towns, villages across Israel. And through the framework of wanting to do the best thing for all of your citizens, wanting to do the best thing for every resident of your town, wanting to compete to be a great place to live, more work has gone into supporting LGBTQ people and other marginalized people city by city by city, even when there have been struggles at the national level. To the right of Rabbi Kariv, there's a white plate. On it, it says, Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel. May the one who brings peace on high bring peace to all of us, to the entire Jewish people, and to all who dwell on earth. In my Jewish journey, as soon as I heard the words v'al kol yoshvei tevel for the first time, and that was at CBST in 1993, those words made an immediate impact on me. They made perfect sense. When we conclude every Amidah, every long Kaddish, with blessings of peace for ourselves and for the whole Jewish people, we should, of course, include the next concentric circle, Yoshvei Tevel, the words for the entire human family. Standing as CBST's representative in the office of Rabbi Kariv at such a dire time in the history of the Jewish people was so powerful because the clarity and authenticity with which this Chaver Knesset speaks about his love for the Jewish people is so strong. And he manifests that love by asking us to lean into our Jewish values, to our greatest hopes and aspirations, not just when it's easy, but maybe especially when it's difficult, not to abandon those values. So I love the wall in Rabbi Kariv's office, and in fact there are a few of them. This is just one. But we are aware that some walls can be problematic. Segments of a wall at the American border with Mexico, Rabbi James and Noah Habib were just at that border a few weeks ago. A separation wall in the West Bank. I saw quite a bunch of this on my journey and was aware of the privilege of travel I had as an American. And of course, the issues of access at the Kotel, the Western Wall itself. I like Gilad Kariv's wall the best because it aspires to be a wall of beautiful words and values that seek to connect, even in a world that is divided, even when it's so easy to build yet another wall. It's been some time since CBST traveled as a congregation to Israel, and Rabbi Werber, the board, and I have agreed that the time has come to go again. We're in active conversations with a trip provider and a guide to spend time there as a synagogue as soon as this coming December. While I can assure you that we will see some walls, we will also connect across them and develop our own sense of values along the way. I hope we will come and go with many, many blessings. Shabbat shalom.